Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unfuck Your Mind. I'm your host, Zach Liotis. And in today's podcast, I have Dr. Rhoberta Shaler, relationship consultant, mediator, and speaker. Dr. Rhoberta Shaler, the relationship help doctor, provides urgent and ongoing care for relationships in crisis. Her mission is to help people stop tolerating abuse. Even the United States Marines sought her help. Dr. Shaler focuses on helping the partners, exes, and adult children of the relentlessly difficult people she calls hijackals to stop the crazy making and save their sanity. Author of 16 books, including Escaping the Hijackal Trap and Stop That's Crazy Making. She hosts 2 podcasts, Emotional Savvy Show and Save Your Sanity, and her own channel, Emotional Savvy on Binge TV Network. Thank you for being here, Rhoberta.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I don't have that channel on Binge anymore. I used to for quite a long time, but not anymore.
Okay, so let's just erase that. No more channel, but they could find you in both of your podcasts, which is amazing.
Yes, and I have a third one starting soon.
Yay.
Yeah.
And I feel that right now what's happening is a lot of people need a relationship doctor. I think by the energetic frequency, just raising consciousness. I've been dealing a lot with individuals that come to me that are ready for divorce because they just can't see eye to eye with a lot of things. So I'm happy that you're here to bring light to a lot of questions. But before we get into that whole thing, I want to talk about the hijackals because that's where a lot of problems stem from. So let's just go right into that part.
Sure. I created and trademarked the term hijackals. And why I did that, Zach, is because too many people that were coming to me, and I have clients from all over the world because I work in video conferencing, and they were saying to me, well, I went to the internet and I said what was happening to me, and it told me that this person is a narcissist or a psychopath or whatever. And I said, well, you know, really, the internet is an index. It's not really a mental health professional. So maybe we should have a term that describes, a non-clinical term that describes the patterns, the traits, and the cycles of these people. You don't need a diagnosis because you will very seldom get a diagnosis. So let's just be able to talk about how they behave and how you're going to feel responding to their behaviors. So the term hijackals is defined as people who hijack relationships for their own purposes and relentlessly scavenge them for power, status, and control.
Wow, that is powerful. It almost feels like it just came from my root all the way up from my body. So I could imagine what I'm holding on to as you're saying that. Because I probably went through a lot of hijackal situations with different patterns and relationships that I've been through. And, you know, thinking that we heal through the process and liberating ourselves from, I'm sure that we have little remnants that kind of hang out with us. So what are some patterns that people can look for when they are in that kind of hijackal relationship?
Well, the most important one, because it's the one that's going to impact you the most, is in every situation, whether we're talking about where to go to dinner or what to do with our life savings, they have to win. Any conversation, any decision, they must have it their way. So a very, very strong need to win. And that's because they have such a strong need for power and control. And so therefore the winning comes. Another thing is that they don't have a lot of empathy. They can mimic empathy. And they do that in the beginning when they're in their chameleon stage, when they're doing what we call love bombing you. They want you to be their supply, so they are anything you want them to be. And you'll find with hijackals that what they do is they move very quickly. And they do that because they can't sustain this love bombing. So they try to move the relationship forward. You've all heard situations where somebody said, oh, I don't even know you, but I know I'm going to marry you. Or, oh, I'm sure I love you on the second date. Big red flags, big red flags. And so they're in a rush to move in, to marry, to be pregnant, to do something that will give ultimate power over you. And so people move into that all too quickly. So the need to win, and then no empathy or very little empathy or mimicking empathy. It's not really felt. They don't really care how you feel. But if it serves their purpose, they will for a moment or a hot second.
Yeah.
Another thing that they do is they engage in what's called all or nothing, black or white thinking. So 1 minute you're having a tender moment and you are the best thing that ever happened to them. Mm-hmm. And then you look at them sideways or the weather changes and you're the scum of the earth, and they tell you they don't know why they even bother with you. There's nothing in between. It's they all good or all bad. And so you see somebody who behaves that way, they either have hijackal tendencies, or perhaps they were raised by a hijackal who made life seem that that's the way it was. So those are 3 big hallmarks of hijackals.
It sounds like I've been down that path.
Most people have. Even maybe not closely, maybe they didn't marry one or be raised by one, but maybe they had a boss, maybe they had an uncle, maybe they had an aunt. I had an aunt who was a raving hijackal, just the most nasty woman, nasty. And she got her jollies from setting people in the family up against one another, and she'd lie about them all, and then she'd sit back and watch the fireworks. Yeah. They exist. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that it's not like it's in different types of relationship and not just a spousal relationship. Like you mentioned your aunt or a boss or someone like that. So these traits are just in anyone in general. It doesn't have to be a spouse, from what I'm getting.
No, it could be your friend, could be a coworker, could be someone at your church, could be the minister, could be your attorney, could be your surgeon. If you want to have a little bit of fun, just go on the internet and Google, what are the 10 most frequent careers of psychopaths? You won't be happy with what you find, but it will be eye-opening.
That's incredible.
Yeah, well, think about it for a moment. We all can just take stock of, where do people naturally give their power away? Well, wouldn't that be a natural place for someone who wants all the power?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Wow, I got to breathe through that one. That was deep. Like it feels like you hit a spot that I've been asking spirit to bring me answers to. And it's like, well, get rid of the hijackal that you've been holding on within you, like an old story, an old trauma that I've been holding on to. So this is like a perfect timing for just me coming out of a healing pattern and beliefs that I went through. So thank you for showing up today and sharing this amazingness with me. And it really comes down to the whole mind manipulation and really striking at your weaknesses. And then it almost feels like a roller coaster effect. It's like you could go up and then you could go down, and as you're down, they bring you back up. Is that the pattern that I'm feeling there? That goes on?
Well, they certainly have the ability to do that, but when they get you down, they want you to stay down, and if it suits their purposes, they'll bring you up for a moment, but the idea is always to have you under their control. So they traffic in uncertainty. If they can keep things in chaos and confusion, they may see someday. And you might think that they just said that they're going to do it with you, but they were very calculating that it was someday.
So it's interesting. So really paying attention to the language that is being spoken towards you.
Ooh. Well, let me say something about that. It's very important in all relationships to really hear what's being said, because men and women use language differently. Hello. I'd love to do that. Would you love to do that? And he'd say, yeah, I'd love to do that. And as a woman, we kind of take that, if we don't know better, we kind of take that as a plan. Mm-hmm. But the fellow was saying, yeah, one day, maybe on this planet or on another one, that would be a good idea.
Interesting. Yeah. It's really interesting how, now, does this usually happen when, it's like so many different things are coming to me. So does this usually happen when we feel that we're at our lowest and people could see that within us? Or does it usually come to us when we feel that we are at our highest and someone can manipulate us to bring us to the lowest?
A really good question. Hijackals have two things that they like. They love people who are already pre-trained, and that's something that happens in your family of origin. So if you had a hijackal parent, you are usually going to become either a hijackal to be like them and please them, or you're going to become what I call hijackal bait, which is you've become so compliant to get the pleasure here. You didn't become like them, but you did everything that they wanted. And you've been worn down and torn down. So hijackals kind of have a radar for hijackal bait. They can see that you've already been pre-trained or pre-groomed, so they jump on that one. And the other thing that they seem to like is a challenge. So if you're doing really, really well, they will play on you to find your vulnerabilities, and then they will have joy in pulling you apart. And I shouldn't really say it's joy. Feel good. Not planned, not intentional. It's all they know to do.
That's really interesting. Wow. It's like almost when you're saying, the definition of hijack is almost like gaslighting from what it feels like too.
Sure. Gaslighting is definitely one of the things that all hijackals do. And for those people who don't know what that means, it means that they will try to define your reality for you. You will say, it's a nice day today, and they will say, no, it isn't. It's going to rain at any moment. And it's raining right now, but you just have reality. You will think something's wonderful. They'll tell you you're crazy. It's not wonderful. They will say, I thought we had. The idea is to catch you in a place where they have power over you by denying something they set up before and then telling you you're wrong. It's crazy making.
Yeah, it's almost like anxiety making right now, even just talking about this with you, because I could just imagine how many men and women, because I know it's not just women that go through this, there's women hijackals out there as well, but just how many men and women that are out there that want to fill in that emptiness of love and going outside themselves to look for that. And they come into contact with a hijackal knowing, hey, I could just rob this person of their peace, their love, their sanity, and bring them so far down that by the time they realize it, I'm gone.
Right. Yes, it's great joy in the hit and run lover, right?
Yeah.
Like I can swoop in, absolutely love bomb this person, make them think they're the best thing that ever happened, then tread all over them and leave them wounded and bleeding and move on to somebody else. You know, that's one pattern. Another pattern is to do all of that, but keep you around and keep trotting on you and go get new supply at the same time. Because most hijackals will always have supply or supply in waiting, or at least prospects. They can never be without this thing we call supply. Somebody to have power over, someone to feed them that they're powerful. And so they may have you at home, which they've already kind of destroyed a whole lot of your self-esteem. And then they'll go and get other people into their lives because you're not meeting my needs. And so then you will be further downtrodden, and the hijackal will still have more supply. Interesting.
So they're thriving off watching other people suffer. And
well, one category of them thrives off watching people suffer. The fact is they don't have enough empathy to recognize suffering. So all they're really doing is saying, well, that worked well for me.
Yeah. Interesting. So how could someone, I know you wrote a book, Save Your Sanity. How could someone save their sanity from being with a hijackal? Because really at the end of the day, when you're so depleted, you need to save your sanity from someone or something like this.
You know, that book is actually, the subtitle is How to Quit Playing the Passive Aggressive Game. So I have written two other books, though. One is called The Hijackal Trap, The Hidden Anger of Passive Aggression, and then another book called Escaping the Hijackal Trap. So there are 3 books on Amazon that you can grab that deal with this exact thing. But how do we quit? Well, first of all, we have to recognize what's really going on. Yeah. Right? We have to take off those rose-colored glasses that are still back there going, but I remember when I felt loved. I remember when all these wonderful things were said to me. And so we get hooked on hope that that person who love bombed us is in there somewhere, and they're going to come back. So we tend to pretzelize ourselves. We make ourselves into a pretzel going, if only I'm less demanding, I don't nag, I'm more nourishing, I provide more sexual comfort. If only I do all of that, then that person that I met in the love bombing stage would come back.
Interesting. It's like we're always taking blame for someone else trying to walk away from us, or feeling that we haven't given our all, or that we're not enough, and then we have to give more to receive more. It's like trying to fill in that void that we're feeling as an individual, or the person's feeling, whoever it may be. But even my experience, I went through that. You learn to recognize who you are after that on a whole different level from what I would understand just through my own journey and imagining men and women go through this.
To see it, or at least say, I don't know what it is, but I don't want any. But think of a child caught in this kind of a relationship.
Yeah.
They have the DNA of both parents, compliant person, maybe a codependent, maybe an empath, some help, willing to support, will do anything to make the relationship work. And so the children are seeing that dynamic. And what the research supports, Zach, is unfortunately that the predisposition, and this is learned, it's not born, except in a tiny fraction of these people that we could talk about, they learn that they are not welcomed by joy. They have all of this going around them, and that hijackals are people who, if they were ever diagnosed, but they wouldn't go for diagnosis because they're far too perfect to ever think they would need help. But if they were to go for diagnostic personality disorder, are they psychopathic? Are they sociopathic, which are the antisocials? Are they histrionic, which means that they must create drama all the time and be the center of attention? Or are they narcissistic, which means they've got to be the master manipulator running the show and everything has to be all about them? So these patterns are at a very early age. And then they're reinforced and reinforced and reinforced. Now, if you don't develop those patterns, then you usually develop that compliancy and you become what I call hijackal bait. So you don't become like them. But, you have to think, okay, what about those children watching it?
I think I lost you there. What was your last line that you said there? You cut out.
I said, what about the children who are watching this? As an adult, we can handle it. But right? We have to think for our children as well as for ourselves when we have them around us.
For sure. And this is something that, I have these conversations with women and men all the time, that kids come into this world full of love and compassion and caring, and it's the parents that imprint all their stuff, whatever it may be, onto them and create, you could have an angelic child or you could have a monster of a child. And it's like, who's going to take care of this individual if there's two parents that are going through this? Where is this child finding its refuge?
Well, they don't, and that's the problem, because the children need to be validated. And when you're born to a hijackal, I was. I had two hijackal parents that all this out. But my parents were only interested in what I did that made them look good.
Mm.
So the doing was rewarded. Oh, in fact, overly rewarded. But, who cares what your feelings are? Of no interest. Just go out and make us look good. Fortunately for me, and I think one of the things that saved my sanity is that I'm fairly bright and I happen to be musically talented. So I could go and play the piano or sing and win all kinds of things, or at school, and they were ill, or if anything, I was just a nuisance. Just a nuisance. And I should buck up and suck it up and move on.
Interesting. So it's interesting how our journey takes us to what we need to teach other people, because we've been down that path. We know the emotion, we know the feeling. I've always said this in every position that the universe has put me in. I'm like, why am I here? What do I need to learn? And what am I going to teach other people? And this is a perfect example that you've been there. It's happened. And now you're assisting even the U.S. States Marines with this. Like, this could also happen in workplaces to that caliber of intelligent individuals.
Oh, absolutely. I was speaking at the California HR conference a couple of years ago and talking about hijackals at work and together. And someone said, well, what happens to a hijackal at work? How do you get rid of them? And I said, brace yourself. They get promoted.
Wow.
That's what happens to them.
Wow. That's
because
crazy.
Normal pinball gets shot out. Yeah, the normal pinball gets shot out and goes to the top and then comes down. But a hijackal quietly comes in the bottom and works their way up, says, ooh, I don't want this. And they give them a lateral or a vertical move. And slowly but surely they rise. And that's when you get those absolutely frightening department heads or managers or whatever, is that they've been pushed off by the people who didn't want them. And that's how our own the company started the company. Because what's the best thing for a hijackal to do? Be an entrepreneur where you can just say it's my way or the highway.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you have any techniques that you could share with the audience on, in your books or right now, that they could go through a process of healing themselves through this if they've left the hijackal or if they're in the middle of leaving a hijackal? Because I know right now divorce rates, I find, are on a high, and there's so much disconnection with humanity when it comes to couples. Do you have anything in the books that could help people through that process?
I have lots of things in the books that can help. But when you've left, as you were saying, your question, I believe, is if you've left or you've recognized this and you've pulled away, leave if you're wise. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm speaking about the marital relationship and the living together relationship in this case, because when you jump out of a relationship like this, you don't want to jump out in anger and upset and an emotional outburst. Mm-hmm. Because what ruined everything, and you will be sitting outside somewhere with no money and just the clothes on your back, and that grand exit will not have been one that serves you. So you want to do your own work, unless there's physical or sexual abuse. You want to do your own work within the relationship learn so they work, see what difference it makes, if any. Then you start making decisions. And if you're going to leave, you must prepare. Prepare very, very. I had one person, Zach, a woman, and we were looking at her assets, and she said, yes, the house is in both our names. And so I said, you better check that. So she went to the bank, and I guess on some day a couple of years prior, some young thing who was manipulated and seduced by the hijackal was working in the bank, and that's my guess. And the hijackal walked in, and what helped? My wife is so sick, and she can't come in. She can't even sign her name. And she's so afraid that her parents will try and take the house if she dies. So she really wants it to be in my name. Can you help me?
Wow.
And whomever that person was took the wife's name off the house. Now, if she had left without that preparation, what a horrible thing to find out when you're out trying to afford. You don't want to be doing that. You want to have this all done before you leave.
Yeah. So preparation is key to leaving a hijackal relationship and saving your sanity, saving your life ahead of you, because you just don't know what path that you've been put on. It's not like you're going on, but you've been put on through this mind manipulation over and over.
That's right. And you don't know what you can actually believe, because the hijacker will have told you whatever was convenient for his or her winning. So you don't have accurate information, even though you may think you do. Mm-hmm. And another thing, hijackals are very cunning. They say things like, oh, don't worry about the finances. I'll take care of the finances. You don't know what's coming in. You don't know what's going out and where it's going. You don't know if it's accurate that you can't afford anything. And you just become isolated, marginalized, and try your way out of that by preparing before you leave. And never, never say you're leaving. Do not threaten to leave. Do not say you're leaving. Make that decision. Work that through with someone like, sit down with someone like me who knows all of this stuff and do what you need to do. Ready to leave. You do everything you need to, but don't tell the hijackal you're going, because pre-warning a hijackal is a recipe for disaster.
Well, I could imagine. I could definitely imagine, because look what they're doing even when you're staying and offering all your goodness to them and catering to them and loving them, how they're just manipulating. I can't imagine if you threaten them to say, I'm gone, and not prepare yourself. So if any of the listeners are going through something like this, get a hold of Dr. Rhoberta Shaler and really get yourself prepared, because the world could be a really ugly place these days with a lot of hijackals and people that just want to manipulate you out of your life savings or your journey, your passion in life. Because at the end of the day, everyone is kind of looking out for their own self rather than looking out for, the safety or, the happiness of their children or their spouse. And that's what's really mind-boggling.
Yes, and if you're with yes, it is mind-boggling, because if you're with a hijackal, first thinking, it messed with your emotions. Mm-hmm. So you have to do things that empower you. You have to You have to learn what your values are, what your personal vision for your life is, what your belief, prepare yourself. And then you need to prepare. You have started an account for yourself. You've done all kinds of checking and checking assets and seeing where money goes and seeing tax returns and all of that to make sure that you do have an accurate picture, not just the one you were told.
Yeah, so have the evidence in front of you before you step out of the relationship. This almost sounds like a few clients that I've worked with, and I've always said to them, be sure that everything is in alignment. Be sure that you know what you're doing. Be sure you speak to a lawyer. Be sure of everything that whatever is going on in your mind. If it doesn't feel right, look it up. Research what's going on. It almost feels like that way of preparation, because at the end of the day, you definitely don't want surprises. Yeah. Now, through this process, you know, we're talking about empowering ourselves and recognizing our value. Do we show the hijackal right now that we feel more empowered in the knowingness of what is going on? Or do we just continue pretending to play this, that hijackal game?
Yeah, good question. No, you don't do anything big and overt and be different. But as you're doing your work, you get some strategies, you know, say this differently, try this differently, what's possible in the relationship as you're changing the way you do things. That's the preparation too, is maybe my children are not at a good age to leave, so let me set her, and maybe I could stay a little longer. And so these are things that will empower you in every relationship in your life, so they're great to practice. And then you just gently insert them just in the relationship that you have. And if it can change, it will. And you may find that some of these strategies to have a little more peace in the relationship. And maybe then you feel like, okay, I could prepare a little longer. I could make it a little longer before I make my final decision. Because there are times in children's lives that are more critical than others that you don't really want to be leaving.
Yes, yes. Wow, this is such an eye-opener and so beautiful on so many levels, and I'm so glad we touched on this. And I know that you're a relationship help doctor, so I want to go to that because this is one avenue that I know that you work through. But explain what the relationship help doctor really is, or who you are in that category.
Sure. Well, what I do is I help couples when they finally realize that they're in crisis. The research shows that a couple will have the same problem. There will be that minute then when I can't stand this a minute longer. I'd like people to come a few years earlier than that. And what I do is I work with a couple together and separately in order to mature the relationship and the participants in the relationship emotionally. Among the many books that I've written, I wrote this one called Kaizen for Couples, Smart Steps to Save, Sustain, and Strengthen Your Relationship. And what I did here, Zach, was I put all of my goodies in there. I've been doing this for a long time, and so it became a good idea to put it all in a book and come to see me. Then you'll be ahead, right?
Yes.
But it's very important working with couples to have them realize that, you know, you don't pull your own teeth, fill your own, who makes the study of doing just that. So you don't feel embarrassed or badly that you have to go and take your car in to be repaired. Think about going to someone like me. I'm a relationship consultant. Yes, I have a PhD in psychology, but I choose to call myself that now
Mm-hmm.
So because I work all over the world, when my teeth aren't good, I go there. When my relationship isn't good, I go and see Dr. Shaler. It's just the same thing. And yet, for some reason, we think we're supposed to be able to pull our own teeth, right?
Yeah.
And that's not the case. Get help. Know who they are, know what they value, know what their beliefs are about the world, share that with their partners, become curious about their partners, build, if possible, better communication and deeper emotional intimacy,
Mm-hmm.
and to know when is a pleasant ending.
Now, do you find sometimes, I know it was so interesting since I started this journey in the spiritual world, I always attracted women that wanted to get a divorce, or they're just in the beginning stages of divorce. And I never understood why I was attracting this type of a woman. I thought there must be a bigger purpose here. So after digging into my past lives, I realized what it was. But how about if there's one partner that wants to do and the other partner refuses to do it? They don't see a problem. How do they solve something like that?
Well, it's a big red flag. So the partner that wants to get help, I advise that they go and get help, because what they need to be is validated in their concerns. Like, you go to someone and you say, like, if someone comes to me and they'll tell me about it, and they say, well, do you think that's normal? Or am I making this up? Or am I nuts because my partner keeps telling me I am?
Yeah.
And the validation that you get, and maybe you hear, no, you've got your head on a little crooked around that one, but that's what you need to do, right? It's same as going to the dentist. Do I need a filling or don't I need a filling? It feels like I have a hole in my tooth. Do I? Right? Well, you want to go and find out, am I healthy? Because you are your contribution to the relationship. So you want to be the healthiest you can be emotionally. So if your partner won't go along, they're just probably afraid, or maybe they have hijackal tendencies. But that shouldn't stop you from being the best that you can be, from being the most aware and the most centered and the most balancing that you can be. So if there's something that's really irking you, or you think it's a problem, go and get the validation yourself. If your partner wants to say no, then you really know that you have an issue. Then things become a little different.
I am so honored to have this conversation with you, because I've researched the percentage of divorce that's happening now, and it's blowing my mind, and just speaking to so many people about it, and just the disconnect I see with couples that are in restaurants that are not even having a conversation, but they're on their phone. Yeah. It blows my mind that, you're having dinner and yet you can't even look your partner in the eye. Your eyes are down. And there's times, I remember when I was a server, I wanted to rip their phones out of their hands and say, have a conversation, talk through things. And I found, I've met a few hijackals in the restaurant industry as a server. I remember males yelling at, their spouse, and even females. And I would just say, is everything okay here? We're in a restaurant. You guys are literally about to have World War III in here. And, one of the partners was so embarrassed. And I'd say, just go outside and get some air. Just let it just melt off of you. But this was full of wisdom and full of amazing guidance, and I just love it. So if you're anyone out there that's listening to this podcast that is recognizing some signs of hijackals that they are living with, or maybe you are a hijackal and you just have to change your tendencies, because I always think that you don't even want to realize that you're a hijackal because you feel so good being one at the end of the day.
They have no interest in knowing anything about that, because they're perfect already.
That's why I'm saying you don't have any interest. But anyone that's going through this and recognizing these patterns, please go get the books, Escaping the Hijackal Trap and Stop. That's Crazy Making. And really connect with Dr. Shaler in this and get clarity. Really work on yourself and find the strength and the courage to take that next step. So I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for the work that you do. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to have this amazing conversation with you and to bring light to this situation.
Well, I'm so glad that you wanted to talk about it. It's, in my opinion, so important to really be able to see and shed light on so people can have happier lives once they recognize what's really going on. So you're doing a great service to all your listeners by bringing good information to them and insights that can change their lives too.
Yes, thank you so much. Such an honor and pleasure. Everyone, go check out Dr. Shaler. Her, social handles are in the show notes just below. I can't even put two words together right now because I have to sit with all this information that you've given and just allow it to process through. I'll probably cry throughout this whole thing because I feel so many different emotions coming up for me. It's like a whole clearing. So I could just imagine if you are in that place and need to have that release, please contact Dr. Shaler and really allow yourself to step in your divine power and be who you are authentically, not allowing anyone to really damage you any further. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And
thank you.
I hope to have you back on the show one day so we could have a part 2 on this.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day. And remember to catch us next week on Wise Women Wednesdays. Bye for now.